Mr. Groves, one of the justifications for going forward with the new bond proposal, and I think this means Measure E, is equity between different parts of the district. But if equity is giving everyone a quality education, how can we support building more buildings when we can only afford a kindergarten that's 3 hours and 20 minutes long? We have 35 plus kids in a middle school class, and our latest batch of STAR tests were nothing to write home about.
How can we, the measure, is this a choice between Measure E and Measure D? I'm not sure.
It says here, so I think this is a question about equity. If equity is giving everyone a quality education, how can we support building more buildings when we can only afford kindergarten that is 3 hours and 20 minutes long? And
I see. Well, I do support Measure E. I do support rebuilding all of our schools. Right now, the schools that are being targeted with Measure E funds are in seriously bad shape. And I don't think students should be subjected to schools that are falling apart. In that sense, I believe that's an equitable and fair thing to do. I also don't necessarily see that the funding of the bond program is of necessity coming at the expense of classroom funding. I think that we've floated a number of parcel tax measures which have died, as many parcel tax measures as we have bond measures. And they failed because of the threshold of 67% versus the 55% for bond measures. I look at a place like Portland Valley where the average teacher salary is $80,000 and their parcel tax bill is around $500 per parcel. And we're nowhere near that. I think we could do both. I think there's room for both. I would gladly pay more money to see our students achieve more results. I also think we need to go to make sure that we get a weighted student formula through the state of California that pays for our most struggling students. I think that's the only way we're going to achieve financial equity with higher performing districts.
Mr. Enos?
When we look at, the current bond to take care of 4 schools we haven't finished, we have to remember that there have been literally 56 or 57 other schools that have received that. So in terms of equity, yeah, we need to make sure that those buildings are taken care of for the students that attend those schools. The other issue that comes with this is our ability to make sure that equity is occurring in the classroom. And that comes down to materials, comes down to practices, comes down to a lot of things that a lot of folks like to call technical teaching issues, which are really, really, really important for us to keep track of. It's important for us to make sure that we know what's happening in each one of the schools with all of the students. So in that respect, I think we've probably got a ways to go in terms of actually saying this is exactly what we need to do. We need more community input on what they think needs to happen as well. So there's 2 or 3 ways to look at that.
Mr. Stelter?
The bond is very important to pass. As a businessman and somebody who's watched the bond, I look at several things. First off, our district pays a lower percentage for our bonds than any district in the state of California. Our borrowing rate is lower. We have sold 46 bonds into the market, and never once have we exceeded the promise to our taxpayer in the taxation rate. We've received more state funds, matching state funds, than any district in the state of California. Parity is important. Equity is important. When you look at these schools, they're in very poor neighborhoods. We're expected to raise expectations of education, and you leave them in a dump, an unsafe dump. It's not fair. There has to be equity in the district. And the other thing is that money is never going to be cheaper than it is right now. And that's serious, okay? We've been able to borrow more and keep our buildings going. We've gotten probably 10 buildings that we shouldn't have gotten because we built during the time of the economic downturn. We put people to work. Those people live in our communities. Their kids go to our school. We achieved a tremendous feat that very few people see outside of our district. When you look at the parcel tax, you need to support that parcel tax. If you don't support that parcel tax, I'm cutting 150 teachers this year. And I don't know where you're going to get me to cut them because it's You know, I've lost $44 million to educate kids in the last 4 years. That is upsetting to me. I need to just hold my own and tread water here so we, you know, and even though we've been cut so poorly, we have been increasing performance. So right now, there's no better time than to keep forward moving. I've got just 10 more seconds, but UC Berkeley's going to start building here. And that's going to take building supplies, labor, and a whole lot of other host of things. And costs are going to go up. Now's the time. We've been wise the whole time.
Mr. Madonna.
I want you to repeat the question because I hear something in the background of that question. Repeat the question once more.
Sure. One of the justifications for going forward with the new bond proposal is equity between different parts of the district. But if equity is giving everyone a quality education, how can we support building more buildings when we can only afford a kindergarten that is 3 hours and 20 minutes long? We have 35 plus kids in a middle school class, and our latest batch of STAR tests were certainly nothing to write home about.
I walk on the campuses of El Cerrito High School, Elms, the other schools that have been built in our district. And how do I explain to parents at Lake, at Grant, Olinda, Shannon, I'm sorry, equity doesn't apply to you. We need to rebuild those schools that are in desperate need of care, desperate need of rebuilding the entire school. How do you, people from El Cerrito or from Richmond or from Hercules or Pinole, are able to tell the working class parents in San Pablo and also in Richmond and parts of other parts of the area, I'm sorry, equity doesn't apply to you because we've got our schools now, but you go off and do your thing. Equity is important. What one school, one community gets, the other community should get too, and that's what we're trying to do with our bond program. Once the bond measure passes, in another 4 or 5 years, we will have rebuilt all the schools in our district. We're the only school district in the state of California doing this. Thanks to the voters, thanks to all the bonds that they've passed. It's marvelous. When I talk about this outside the San Francisco Bay Area, people go, you're doing what? One of the poorest districts in the state? I say, yes, we're doing it. And the parents and the voters support us. That's what makes our district unique. That I wish we could double the pay of teachers, but we don't have the funds for that. But yes, equity is very important. Everyone should get the same deal. Gracias.
Okay, we actually had several bond questions, so let me just go to this next one here, starting with Mr. Enos. The West Contra Costa Unified School District's bond tax rate, so this is a little technical, is $232 per 100,000 assessed value before adding the proposed new measure E, which would make it 280 to 100,000 assessed value. And then here's the question. This debt burden is 40% higher than the next highest debt burden in similarly seismic districts in the Bay Area and 150% of the median in the Bay Area. Is there an amount of debt that would be too much?
Not being an expert in bond management, I'm going to kind of take the educator's universal view and say that what we're doing is saving ourselves money down the road. I agree with what Robert brought up in terms of getting money at a time and using it at a time when many others aren't is probably wise use of that money. But bottom line, the fact remains, we have students that need to be in facilities that are adequate for them to go ahead and succeed as students in our district. So frankly, I probably need to know more about the amount of money that's spent for that, but I think it's money that needs to be spent for that.
Okay, when I look at this, our district pays an incredibly low rate for our bonds. I just can't. If you look at Poway, they sold a $150 million bond, and their payoff over 40 years is $1.2 billion. We just sold a bond, $100 million bond, we're going to take $50 million on it. It's wise management. This is cheap money right now, and the matching funds that we get from the state are precious. They allow us to finish buildings. We have to remember, you're in an earthquake land, right? And I spent 2 years talking to all my state, federal local governments, the police force, the fire, the emergency preparedness people. And, you know, when we have a major earthquake, our buildings are going to be the savior of your area. So people who are paying these bonds, it's not just families that are paying these bonds, it's the entire community. And the entire community is getting a lot more than they ever bargained for or will ever know until something catastrophic happens. These buildings are built the strongest of any building in the state of California and in the nation. They're building standards for that. So when you look at the bonds, you look at the fact that we're paying bonds off in 25 years as opposed to 40, you guys are getting an incredible deal. The state did a really dastardly thing to school districts when they passed Prop 39, okay? All of a sudden, school boards and superintendents were thrown into the mutual market with no training whatsoever. We're lucky, we're fortunate. We have 2 board members who've worked their tails off to understand the bond market, who've gone to the bond conferences and learned how to drop our rates. You pay the lowest. I would pay, you're just so lucky. I just can't tell you. Our bonding rate is really low.
Mr. Monroe.
If we want decent schools, well-built, seismically safe schools, we need to pay for it. We're an earthquake country. That's why we had to close Adams, had to move Portola, and we need to rebuild the schools so the students feel safe. 1, 2, they look pride in going to these brand new schools that's in Ford, soon Coronado, in another couple of years Stige, and they have to be safe. Our schools are community schools. They're built to the standard that if something happens in our area, that's where parents should go for assistance and for help. They're community schools. They're built to withstand, God forbid, an earthquake like the one that dropped a chunk of the bridge into the bay. So I think it's well worth it. I'm a property owner. I'm willing to pay for it. I think it's needed. Again, it's a question of equity. Too often I hear the sound back there someplace that says, we have our school, we don't need to build anymore. So.
Mr. Brooks.
Okay. Well, I think $280 per 100,000 assessed value seems like a pretty good upper limit for bond service in per property. I think we've run the course of our rebuilding program. We're the only district in the state that I know of that's been so vigorous in rebuilding our schools. It's not a bad goal. The superintendent himself, the state superintendent, Tom Torlakson, has called this issue a very prominent issue. We're the district that took the initiative and did it. Would it have been my priority? Probably not. I'm much more focused on what's going on in the classroom. I think I would have put my efforts there, but where I am the board previously. But it's not a misplaced goal to make sure our schools are safe, clean, rebuilt. And we're looking at $5 billion over time for 50-year infrastructure, which doesn't seem an unreasonable amount of money. And that for such a long-lasting gift to the community. But I would say that there's a perception that it comes as an opportunity cost to improved academic results. I'm not sure I agree anymore.